I'm live. I'm reading out of Return to Elysium. It's a life of Joan Grant in 2nd century BC. She has just arrived in Rome. She is about 17. She grew up for 4 years in Elysium, or on Elysium, and before that she lived quite remote on an island with only 3 other people. We are here in chapter 3 of the second part of this book, and it is entitled The Hetaera. And it is getting a little bit darker, so I just thought I might take my glasses. Where have I got them then? Oh, here they are. It's getting a bit late. The Hetaera. Salonius decided that while the temple was being completed, I should study his case history so as to learn his technique. These records should try to see the patient as a whole. It is not enough to treat only the part which has succumbed to disease. Mind reacts on body, body on mind. We must cure the cause instead of being content only to palliate the symptoms. That is understood, I said, but why have you made notes of trivial conversations which seem to have no bearing on the case? Here is an account of a man who had nothing wrong with him except a simple fracture of the leg. You set it, the bone knitted, without any complications. You have added a note describing a quarrel between the patient's 3rd cousin and the 3rd cousin's wife. I could understand if they lived in the same house, but they are not even close friends. The cousin's name was familiar to me. He is a consul of some importance. The satisfied patient boasts of his physician. Therefore, I thought it probable that the consul might come to me for advice. It's always helpful to know in advance of any factor which might be relevant. It makes it easier to establish confidence. Surely no one would find a leg broken by slipping in a pool of spilled wine a topic of interest. My dear Lucina, that remark shows you have much to learn of the Roman mind. The Greeks very properly consider disease discreditable. The Romans appear to think it a sign that the gods have found them sufficiently important to suffer divine displeasure. Men and women boast of their afflictions with a fever that would hardly be justified by laurels. I have heard 2 women argue about which of them had greater suffering in childbirth, as might 2 centurions protest their rival victories. He picked up the roll I had been reading and pointed to the note which recorded the quarrel. Beside it was a number added, later in ink of a different colour. We will refer to another roll, he said, and walked across the room to fetch it from one of the many shelves which lined his library. You can read it later. I will give you a brief précis to illustrate my point. In due course the consul asked my advice for pains in the belly. Had I not known something of his family life, I might have advised a change of diet, a prolonged rest, a treatment which any other physician would have been able to give. Instead, I told him to send his wife to me. I was able to make her understand that he ate not only the food which their slaves most admirably prepared, but the bitter words she forced him to swallow. I asked her whether she thought her position as a widow would be preferable to her status as a wife. She preferred silence, salted with charity to the ashes of mourning. The consul made a most dramatic recovery. He ran his fingers down the page. A recovery worth 300 aurei. 300 gold pieces for telling a man that his wife was the cause of his indigestion. The Romans are certainly credulous. You underrate me. I played a role of which Apollo need not be ashamed. I gave the woman some harmless powders and told her, the husband, that she alone could cure him by putting one in his wine each evening. She had learned from me to curb her tongue. I gave him the confidence that his health would be restored by the beloved consort. They are both happy and most grateful. The necklace she gave me as a token of gratitude fetched another 100 aurei, not an inadequate return for the trouble of making a note which you considered so unimportant. You and Epicurus will find much in common. I have great admiration for Epicurus. I suggested that we divide the tribute you will bring to the temple in the proportion of 1/3 to you. He insisted on a half. He argues well. I have accepted the portion. Epicurus had done even more. He had demanded a sufficient advance on my future earnings to pay most of our debts, and to buy the villa and 6 household slaves. So at last we enjoyed meals which were freely bought, and slept in beds which really belonged to us. When the day came for me to put on the priest's robes, which Narcissus had designed for me with such care, I felt unduly nervous. Why should I be more afraid than I had been with Asclepius? I had a temple instead of an abandoned cottage, a sponsor who believed in me, a knowledge of human frailties which would have disgusted the younger Lucina. I was about to prove to Narcissus and Epicurus that they had not trusted me without cause. Salonius saw through my surface of confidence. I have chosen your first patient with care, Lucina. You will find no cold, implacable intellect to challenge. But do not ignore the power of Cordelia. Though she is not so secure as other matrons, the senator she has enslaved speaks with her voice in the affairs of Rome. She commands the service of all the famous soothsayers, and on her word they increase their influence or find themselves diminished. I made sure she was one of the first to hear of you, knowing she would hasten to our new Delphi. Until now I had not been given the opportunity of getting to know Iris, the Greek, who would act as my scribe. I had only seen her once when Salonius made the formal declaration that henceforth she owed her obedience to me. I found her waiting for me in the robing room. Iris, I said gently, we are to work together to try to make people happier. We must both be worthy of Greece. You are serving Rome. I'm a slave bought by Roman money. All individuals are free according to the capacity of their hearts. Freedom does not depend on status or race. Lucius, the boatman, is a Greek too. Will you remember that, please? Will you remember? She glanced towards the door as though afraid, then whispered, Salonius is strong. Salonius is wise, but Salonius is a Roman. She bent and kissed my hand. Forgive me for trying to hate you because I thought you had forgotten the pride of Greece. The stage was set. A lamp burned on a silver tripod beside the couch where Cordelia would recline. The poppy drink was ready in a gold goblet. A blaze of scarlet lilies filled the niche in the white wall. I had chosen the lilies because Salonius told me they were known to be her favorite flower. Suddenly I felt they were a disharmony. I told Iris to take them away, and went to the storeroom to see whether I could find something more suitable. Obeying a sudden impulse, I took a handful of daisies, the precise petals edged with clear pink, and put them in a wine cup. Iris called to me that the boat was approaching the the landing stage. I took my place on the throne behind the gaze curtain. The silver rams' heads were smooth as linen under my hands. Slowly the bronze doors opened. A woman who moved like wind on a field of corn closed them behind her. Except for a bracelet in the form of a serpent, she wore no ornaments. In her right hand she carried a posy of daisies. I saw her smile as though suddenly aware of an unusual happiness. She walked towards the niche and put her flowers with mine. She was about to drink from the goblet when I again obeyed a sudden impulse. Unless you wish it, there is no need to pour poppy to this oracle. She put down the goblet and went to sit on the couch. I looked at her hands. They were relaxed, so I knew she was not afraid. Surely this woman had no illness of body or mind, for her skin was lucent with health. I expected her to ask for an omen, probably to discover whether her protector would remain in favor. Unless she was insecure, why did she consult soothsayers? I wait to hear your question, I said, in the impersonal voice which Euripides had taught me to use when acting an immortal. The greatest of these you have already answered, she gestured towards the flowers. You have shown me that there is one oracle in Rome to whom I can at least entrust my secret. You have found that soothsayers are charlatans, and yet you still consult me? Consult them? I hoped that one of them might cure me of my disease, and yet to none have I dared tell the source of my affliction. You have made a votive offering to Asclepius? No, but many to Apollo. At least I had been right in thinking she enjoyed perfect health. Salonius had not been so well informed as he claimed, for he had told me that the senator was lavish both with money and devotion. If this were true, why did she seek aid from Apollo? I can trust you, she said slowly, as though still trying to believe it true. I can trust you, for the flowers are a sign which no one could dare to doubt. Apollo brought me here. He has not been deaf to my supplication. You wish me to ask Apollo that a lover shall not be forgetful? I saw her hands clench, then again she smiled. Forgive me, I betrayed the omen only because I have drunk deep of disillusion. Ask me in the name of Apollo, or in the name of your heart. Am I to follow the daisies, or remain a husk? What is the corn of which the husk was winnowed? Power, the admiration of men, the jealousy of women. And the husk itself? The knowledge that the bread of my grinding is bitter, that my body will become the husk which leaves no seed for planting. The price of the daisies must be paid in the gold which cannot be turned into coin. Scarlet lilies can be bought with copper. Which can you afford to pay? I have so much copper, so little gold. Can you afford to throw away the gold of which you have so little? Will the copper endure except as the hasps of a sarcophagus? I accept the judgment of Apollo. She went to the flowers and held the vase between her hands, then set it gently on the tripod beside the poppy drink. I have read the omens. No longer shall I seek the little death of Lethe, which I have sought in Rome. The bronze door opened, and I watched her go into the quiet night. I was tired and went straight home without telling Salonius what had taken place. Tomorrow he would have the record taken down by Idas. He prided himself on his skill in interpreting dreams and symbols. He could discover whether he knew more of the facts than I did myself. I should not admit that though I had found myself speaking with confidence, I was still ignorant of the probable effect, or even if there would be an effect at all. Epicurus woke me next morning, and I found it was nearly noon. I overslept, I said with a yawn. I meant to see Salonius this morning. I have just come back from him. You must have done very well last night, Lucina. Cordelia sent a necklace of pearls as a thank offering. I brought our share back with me, enough to pay the rest of our debts. Salonius should be pleased. We shall soon be able to pay him back. Yes, he should. For a moment I think he was, after I told him what the pearls are worth. He's not pleased? No, but he wouldn't tell me why. He wants you to go down early tonight so that he can talk to you before your work. Some people are very difficult to please, I said crossly. I'm still so tired that I shall go to sleep again unless you have anything pleasant to tell me. We are getting very grand, he retorted, no longer to be pleased by a little matter such as pearls or freedom from debt. I found Salonius pacing up and down his room. He turned when he heard me and said sharply, Lucina, I thought I had made it clear that the protector of Cordelius was a man whom it is not wise to anger, and that because of her position she could be extremely useful to us. May I ask why you found it convenient to forget both these important items? If she was dissatisfied, why did she send such a rich gift? I said defensively. She appeared most grateful, as though I had made her really happy. I suppose you know what you have done, though how you knew about the daisies is beyond my comprehension. For a moment a note of grudging admiration warmed his voice. Another practical demonstration of your remarkable powers, but in future you must learn to temper intuition with common sense. Why are you complaining? I had no preconceived idea. I said what came into my head. I had put scarlet lilies as you suggested, and then they seemed inappropriate, so I used daisies instead. I have forgotten exactly what I said. It was mostly in symbols, husks and bitter bread. No, she said that bread was bitter. Anyway, it cannot have been very important. Perhaps I better enlighten you, Cordelia, as she told me quite frankly after she left. You consulted soothsayers only because she wished to discover which policy they were adopting. Soothsayers have considerable bearing on the fortunes of influential people. She came here expecting to find another of the same kind, someone clever but not too scrupulous, whom she could bribe if necessary. On the way here, the young man whose attention she has succeeded in resisting threw a bunch of daisies into her litter, probably the first time a woman of her standing has ever been given such a tawdry present. He snorted. Daisies, which can be picked by slaves from any field. I thought she was far too worldly to be influenced by so trivial an omen. I have overrated the intelligence of women. She ran away with this man, with whom she believes herself to be divinely in love. And he is plebeian. He owns a sausage shop. Are they in danger? Will the senator have them both murdered? No, he will not have even that small balm for his anger. She told him that she had left a letter, which described in detail some of his less dignified habits, and that this would be given into the hands of his most powerful rival should anything happen to either of them. I began to laugh, and though Selenius grew pale with suppressed annoyance, I could not stop. We must buy our sausages from them. I shall tell Epicurus to make a new dish worthy of their love. Love? What will Cordelia feel for you when love has turned all her pearls to sausages? She would have found out that it is better to live on sausages than to starve on pearls. That was good.